This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mins.
She arrived on the banks of the river on a Monday, with a financial account full of money and a heart void of empathy, reason, or sorrow. The sand somehow had traveled up her ankle and mixed into the Kevlar fabric of the court-ordered ankle monitoring bracelet that let off a red LED ping every 0.35 seconds. This caused her to itch relentlessly. She grabbed the monitor to inflict the scratch as her finger could not fit between the bracelet and her skin. She contemplated placing a stick in between to get the satisfaction needed, but stopped short of such an idea when it was achieved using the monitor itself. She had never experienced self-doubt or self-consciousness. Nothing beyond a cold ever bothered her. Now all was a mystery, and the world was large and uncharted. She was frightened by its depth and breadth. She looked over the horizon on the cloudy mirror that the water shone back onto the sky. It was still, and if you concentrated, you could see the fish pass one another beneath, oblivious to the dangers that lurked above the surface. She could easily stick a line in with bait and attempt to remove one of them from their surroundings, plunging their own understanding of their own little world into a realization of the chaos of the unknown elements that we don't focus on. She wondered if she could inflict this fear and paranoia on a fish, and whether these actions would transfer her own anxieties onto the creature. On Tuesday, she took a line to the banks that she had purchased at a home goods and all-sorts store that operated 24 hours a day. It was hidden amongst the pool and water activity shelves that were coated in a fine layer of dust due to lack of interest. She purchased two in case she got frustrated with one and ended up tossing it into the river in protest, but would likely return to the activity days later. She liked to plan for all hypothetical occasions, no matter how unlikely. She nestled into the black and yellow sand and sunk her feet to anchor her position. From a sitting position, she tossed out the line and watched as it missed the edge of the waves, lapping against the shore. She reeled the line in and attempted the throw again and again until there was enough line to justify a lengthy sit by the water. 30 minutes passed without so much as a nibble, let alone a tug. True to her premonition, she threw the line and rod into the river in frustration, dusted the sand off her backside, and stormed off the shallow beach towards her waiting car. Along the way, she passed a man who had set up a line along the footbridge near the cafes. She walked over to observe his techniques, and he was anticipating her arrival. "You give up so soon," he said. "Excuse me? You have to be more patient. You can't toss the rod in for one thing and two. You have to be more patient. They won't bite straight away," he said. She looked down at an adjacent bucket by his feet and saw it full of live fish swimming near one another. "You caught all that?" she asked. "No, that's bait," he said. "Watch this." He reached in and retrieved one with his left hand and held a firm grip on it. He tossed it into the water, and the surface rippled with a flurry of activity as large-scaled fish of different schools and colors swerved around the animal to tear it to pieces. "You use live bait?" she asked. "All the time. It's the only thing that works. I used to use bread like you and wait, and eventually something would nip, but this is just easier." "I didn't use bread. What did you use?" "Nothing." "Well, that's your first mistake. I'd let you have a go with one of mine, but you've got no line left," he said as he turned away from her, ending the conversation. "Will you be here tomorrow?" she asked. The man nodded. On Tuesday, she returned to the river at the same time, and the water was choppier than she remembered. The clouds were gone, and the sun beamed down on the lapping waves and shone back into her eyes, creating a glare that was amplified by its mirror complexity. She held her line in her left hand and placed a cap-like palm over her eyes to scan for the fisherman with the great ideas. She found someone who resembled his presence a few hundred meters up the footbridge and trekked on over to him. "I'm back," she said as she approached. He looked up and she was relieved to see that it was in fact the man who assisted. "I'm not using live bait," he said. She looked down at his bucket to see flies circling and landing on the red and blue contents. "Cow heart, liver, and intestines," he said. "I'm a butcher, so I get this for nothing." She held her nose and turned away. "Yeah, it's not for everyone." He reached out for her rod and took it off her without asking. He grabbed a handful of the red sludge, twirled a loop around her hook, and handed the rod back to her. When she held it, It still had warm, slimy remnants on the handle. She was disgusted. She twitched her nose and frowned. He was surprised at her honesty, but asked regardless. "What is it?" Her eyes darted to the handle. "Gross." "Well, it's a dirty business." He turned back to his rod, and she doubted in her head whether to throw this one into the river to join its cousin and leave the water once and for all. She was always honest in her appraisal of all circumstances. This was what put people off and led to her medication that suppressed emotions. She stopped taking those meds in high school. "Want me to throw it out?" he said, attempting to break her silence. She held the rod back out to him. He placed the frame behind his left shoulder, tossed the line out far into the river, reeled it to the correct level, and gave the handle back to her. She reluctantly took it and stood next to him, holding it but letting the reel roll free. "Keep your hand on the reel as you may need to wind it back super fast if you get a tug," he instructed. She kept 2 fingers on it and stared out into the blinding waters and waited. They stood there in silence for a while that could not be determined. She wondered if he enjoyed the silence more than the hunt, and decided this was a reason not to engage in conversation until he felt comfortable to do so. "You've never fished before," he said. "What gave that away?" she replied sarcastically. "It takes patience to fish," he said. "I'm patient," she protested. "You have already lost 1 reel and you're unwilling to get your hands dirty," he said. "Fishing is hunting. You're taking a species out of its natural habitat and killing it for pleasure or food. It's a dirty business. You have to be patient to compete in a dirty business. You don't have this." "Well, you spoke first." "Excuse me?" "I was standing here enjoying the silence and you spoke first. That tells me you were impatient to understand me and what motivates me to be here day after day to fish. You, yourself, are not patient." "Perhaps this isn't for you," she said, proud of her ability to draw parallels with his interpretations. "Well, I'm different with people than I am with fish. I am impatient with people, but I'm ruthless and diligent when it comes to fish. It takes a certain precision, and I was just being polite enough to pass this piece of wisdom on to you because I thought you might like to hear it. Obviously, I was wrong." The man pulled his rod in and wheeled it faster and faster to speed up any remaining time he would be forced to stand and share the footbridge with her. When the line didn't come in quick enough, he reached into his tucker box to retrieve a box cutter and cut the line completely. He put the line under his arm and knelt down to pick up the bucket of bait and the tucker box and began to walk off. She stood there on the footbridge, alone and patient as per his instruction. She often had that effect on people. She was always looking for activities to quench her thirst for excitement, but was systematically dismantled just as she was beginning to experience emotion resembling fun or what others might deem to be happiness. She couldn't help this, of course. That was her diagnosis. The sun was falling and the day grew cold, and the line was holding still on the water, when a tug, unmistakable in force, made its presence known on the rod handle. She pulled back, and it too pulled with a ferocity that outmatched. She pulled harder, and the rod fought back with double effort. Using her arms to hold the line, it was quickly evident this was a losing battle. The mystery pulling on the line was large, and was determined not to have her rip it from its existence. She began to walk backwards, using every muscle she could muster in her legs. She held the rod with a tighter, firm grip, and was pulled forward by the force of the beast, and almost over the edge of the footbridge. Suddenly, a set of hands appeared on her waist, and an arm wrapped around her and held her tight. She heard his voice, and knew it was the fisherman from earlier. "Don't let go," he said. "Don't touch me," she yelled back. She let the line go, and watched as it took off like a torpedo over the water, and off onto the horizon. "What are you doing? That was enormous," he yelled, watching the line zip off on the surface and disappear. "No one touches me, no one," she said, and she walked off. She made her way over to her vehicle and sat in the driver's seat facing the western bay that was opposite the riverfront, 500 meters behind. She looked down at her ankle monitor and watched, as it flashed its red light in quick succession, as it did on occasions when her position danced on the edge of what the courts allowed.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.